Greetings noble artists, my name is Sage and welcome to another watercolor drawing and painting video. Today we're starting out with a preliminary sketch, which means that it's a sketch that is not actually on the final paper. So first of all, I have a small piece of paper that I generally use for scraps or I'll draw in my sketchbook, and I've sketched out the entire composition there first. Now that that's finished, we can move on to the final paper. So I'm starting out with some basic shapes, and then here I'm measuring out the length of the arms to make sure they're the same length. The left arm ended up being much too long compared to the other one, and so I had to fix that. When I'm sketching, I'm periodically going over the lines with my eraser so that they are more transparent, and I can add more layers of sketching and drawing on top of them. Almost all of the clips you're going to see today are at 20 times the speed, which means that this took a long time. So I redrew this hand like 5 or 6 times. It's okay to not get it right on the first try and to not be happy with it. Just keep working at it until you find something you like. Speaking of not liking things, I also redrew the sides of this bear, the shape of the bear, as well as the face, because it just wasn't working. In the end, I didn't like it entirely, but it was the best that I could do. Also, I had never drawn a badger before, so using basic shapes, I looked at a reference picture and figured it out to the best of my ability. Also, the left hand ended up being too high on the back and it looked too rigid and unnatural, so it's okay to change things. I also finally settled on a face and shape for the bear. I think it's really important to share with you all of the changes that I make during the sketching phase so that you know that I don't get it right on the first try. And here I go, rolling out my eraser into a little tiny snake so that I can roll it gently over the top of my drawing. This makes the pencil lines more transparent, and you don't see them as much when I put down the paint. These are all the brushes, the paint, and the pencil and eraser I used for this project. In that clip, it doesn't show the 0.1 micron brown pen that I used for the final details. And here I am showing off my favorite watercolor cakes that I use for pretty much every painting. They're cheap, easy to travel with, and they provide a large range of colors. The first thing I did was put down a wash of this yellow ochre. What this does is it provides a pre-existing mood for when I put down the rest of the paint. I wanted it to be warm and light, and that undertone will come through in all of the layers of paint I put down after it. I don't have a very strict method for putting down paint. It really is just whatever interests me and draws me to it in the moment. So that's why, even though I'm putting details into the bear's face already, the druid's clothes don't even have a base layer on them. Often what I do is that I try to tackle areas that I might find difficult first so that they're out of the way. And because I don't draw bears that often, I was kind of intimidated to work on this one. I'm I'm starting to put in basic shading to areas that already have a base layer, and then while that's drying, I'm working on putting in the base layer for other areas. With watercolors, because they dry pretty fast, it's easy to work on areas that need work while you're waiting for other areas to dry. If you want clean watercolor paintings, the best way to do it is to let layers dry and let areas dry that you want crisp lines for. If you try to add detail or more paint to areas that are wet, you're just gonna get a watery mess. That being said, if you want soft gradients and transitions between colors and hues and shades, it actually is best to work within an area that is still wet. But for these lines in the hair, it would not have worked if I had that base coat still wet. To mimic the illusion of fur, I do short layers of lines on a base coat and add varying colors and shades to give the illusion that there's light hitting small pieces of hair. And if you layer that up a whole lot, it's pretty convincing. Just keep in mind to follow the gradients that the hair would naturally grow. Now I'm going in to add texture to the clothing pieces. I do a lot of this by cross-hatching or hatching, using short lines parallel to each other and then layering that over itself in different directions. Another good thing to mention is scale and detail. Because this bird is so small, it wouldn't make sense to put every single detail into the feathers because you wouldn't see it from that distance. And now for some atmosphere and background, I'm using a fan brush, one of my favorites, to splotch in some foliage. Now that the painting is done, we can go in with an 01 brown micron pen to add the final details. I use a brown pen because black would be far too stark and too dark for this very light, atmospheric painting. I add some rough shading under the feet because that's where the shadows would be darkest. And I'm using some white gouache paint to add some highlights here. All that's left to do is sign it. Thank you all for joining me, and I hope I'll see you again soon.